any team, obviously, that doesn't have its two starting edge rushers of quality, the Chubb and Phillips, are going to probably struggle to get pass rush. How much of a dilemma has it been for you in terms of needing to rush defensive backs last couple of games more than you want to because you don't have a sack from an edge player these last two games? Or, and in fact, don't have only 3 all season from edge players.
I don't know if it's a dilemma. It's situationally where we're at. I have faith still in our guys that are on the roster. They're just, you have some younger players with Chop Robinson and Mo Kamara who are trying to get on the field, Q Bell. And then some veterans who, again, in Emmanuel Ogbah is giving us everything he has, right? He's kind of dealing with, he tore something in his bicep, right? So kind of fighting through that a little bit. And Tyus Bowser, who was out there working his butt off, trying to make sure he's good to go out there. So I never attack any game plan the same. It's really based on opponent. So a couple weeks ago when we were, sending people at Anthony Richardson, that was with intent. That was because he was a young quarterback. We were giving him some looks he hadn't seen, and we knew he had to get there. Last week, some of the plans changed, particularly in the latter part of the week when we lost Zach Sealer, right? So that forced some game plan changes that were unforeseen at the start of the week. So I have a tremendous amount of faith in those guys. I don't think our lack of edge sack reduction, like I said, is a reflection on them. I'm just calling the game based on the opponent and how our personnel matches up.
And I say Josh Allen, you say.
Oh, man. Where to start? You say this about so many of these guys in today's game where they can beat you both from in the pocket and with their feet. And he's a guy that he doesn't have a lot of weaknesses in his game. So just a tremendous amount of respect for him. They've had the success they've had there in recent years for a reason, and he's a big part of that.
Anthony, late in the game against the Cardinals, we saw Cam Smith trying to cover Marvin Harrison an awful lot. And why not Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, it's not as easy to move in and out of personnel groups, right, particularly in that situation. So at that particular time, in order to get our best 11 on the field, who we thought Cam was one of those guys, to have him learn multiple spots in the limited amount of time he's been out there, I think would be a disservice to him. So in order to put the best 11 on the field, we thought at that particular moment, that was it. We could say, hey, Cam, slide inside when we're playing man, but then some of the zone jobs, that makes it very difficult for him and for them. Just from traveling and finding people and things of that nature, you're opening up an entire new can of worms. So from a matchup standpoint, yeah, do you want to see your best on their best? Sure. But we had the tremendous amount of confidence in Cam at that particular point that he could get the job done.
Khalil Shakir has 36 receptions, 38 targets.
Man.
What does that tell you about how they use them and where they hit them and things like? What does that stat tell you?
Yeah, that means when he throws the ball to him, you better have somebody on him. But that kid, he's a tremendous player, right? He has elite change of direction and quickness. So it's funny because the thing about losing when they lost Stephon Diggs, the one thing you notice about Josh is he'll throw it to everybody, and he has confidence in everybody and getting them the ball. So, the other thing that they're very specific in the routes they run and how they target each guy. So that kid right there, just in the slot, he's a difficult matchup, right? Just because you don't have the sideline as your extra defender, so you got to make sure you usually have multiple people accounted for him.
The addition of Amari Cooper has seemingly opened up Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
What have you seen from him over the last few weeks?
His growth from when we played them in week 2 has been, it's been tremendous. You can see his confidence has grown, both in his ability and the quarterback's confidence in him has grown too. Like those 50-50 balls have now turned more into like 60-40 balls, which for a rookie, that's awesome. You talk about a security blanket for a quarterback. Anytime you can just throw a ball up and you think he has a chance, that's huge. So I think we have the corners and the DBs that can match up with him, both from a size and athletic standpoint. So we'll just have to show up and get it done.
I know you had expected last week when we spoke about Kamara potentially playing more.
Yeah.
What led to Quentin Bell being active over Mo, and do you still feel like Mo has to play more?
Yeah, I think we all want to see Mo on the field. ultimately, who's responsible for that is Mo, right? There's a bunch of other decisions that factor into that, special teams, position like injuries at certain positions, both offensively and defensively. And because of that, a lot of times he's left as kind of the odd man out. So I've challenged him, like where he can add value, so we no longer have to have that discussion about him.
The Cardinals' last three drives. I'm sorry to bring up the last game. I know it was a while ago, but the Cardinals' last three drives were long scoring drives, 75, 70, 73. Is the lack of depth contributing to any fatigue? Is there anything that's showing up as a common denominator for late game long drives by the opponent?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't want to say it's fatigue or a lack of depth or anything from that standpoint, because I think in each of those drives we've had opportunities to get off the field. Right now we're not cashing in on those opportunities, so that's been a point of focus this week. Just ultimately, if there is fatigue at any point in the game, what you have to rely on at that particular point is your technique and fundamentals. And that's where our lapses have occurred. It's been as simple as taking a proper angle on a tackle, right? Or miscommunication because you have had some different bodies kind of rotating in the back end. And that's been where we've suffered. So in those moments, particularly late in game when it's critically important, we have to be on our P's and Q's in terms of technique, fundamentals, and communication.
You mentioned the play that Josh can make with his legs. Obviously, some difficulties last week corralling Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Different type of mobile quarterback, though, obviously a lot bigger. What are some of the key teaching points you have to focus on?
Different, but still the same in terms of like how you have to attack him. You have to make sure you attack the high shoulder, right? Now he doesn't really care where he escapes to. Where as Kyler, we had an idea, and we allowed him to get out of the back of the pocket, which we didn't want to happen. The one thing about Josh is he gives you a chance to get the ball, right? Because he is so strong. He reminds me a little bit like Steve McNair, Ben Roethlisberger back there, where when you get there, you have to make sure you not only try to tackle him, but you almost have equally as good a chance of tackling the ball because he just kind of hangs it out there like a loaf of bread. So I think the biggest thing is to throttle down. Let's make sure we secure and try to get the sack, and then try to attack the ball in doing so.
The rookie receivers have kind of given you guys trouble. Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas Jr. What does that say kind of about the rookie receiving class this year?
Yeah, they're an incredibly talented class, right? And I think everybody knew that coming into the season. There was high expectations and hopes for them, and it's a credit to them that they've just continued to develop throughout this NFL season.
What does Deion Dawkins do for their offense?
I mean, shoot, he's kind of their dude up front, right? And he can do everything. It's funny because from a technique standpoint, he can be a little bit unorthodox, but he always gets the job done. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for their offensive line. I hate to say this, I don't know who their O-line coach is, but hats off to him. I think he does a tremendous job.
Does a spy, you think, work on Allen? And it's a two-part question. A couple of years ago, when Josh Boyer was here, Channing Tindall during his rookie season was tried as a spy on Fields. Obviously Channing hasn't played a snap. Has he shown you guys anything where potentially he could have a role like that? And does a spy work on Josh Allen, do you think?
Yeah, spies to me, like, they're kind of hit or miss, right? There's a lot of times where that guy, he's sitting there, and then the quarterback scrambles off and he still doesn't get him. So it's like, oh, well, now we just wasted a guy. Now we're playing with 10. So ultimately, I try to funnel quarterbacks where we want to go more through games than through actual spies, just because I hate wasting the extra defender. But there are times when it's absolutely necessary. In terms of Channing, I love Channing Tindall. I love it. I love his approach to work, his attitude. Even though he hasn't seen the field, he is the same guy every day and just comes out here and trying to get better. I know his number hasn't been called yet, but if and when that time comes, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in him to go out there and get the job done.
If Zeeler is able to go, he's permitted to wear a face shield. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. I didn't think there was a rule. I know there was a rule about tinting, but I think you're allowed to wear. You don't see a lot of it, right?
Yeah, not anymore. Particularly from big guys, you don't see a whole lot of it. No.
Can you tell us what part of the eye orbit it is with him? Because
man.
it goes like all around your eye, right? The upper side.
I am not a doctor, nor did I stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I cannot get that done.
I mean, Mike left the door open to Zach playing. Are you hopeful he will?
Yeah, I am a much better coach when he's on the field. So I am certainly hopeful. Ultimately, you know, there's been a lot of prayers sent out there from the Weaver family. So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
How's David Long doing physically? I know he's had the hamstring and the knee, right?
Yeah, he's been battling just some kind of, you know, nicks and bumps all season. So I know he's in good spirits, but he's certainly, from a health standpoint, he's been battling. He's been an ultimate warrior for sure.
In the last Bills game, you guys held them 3 for 9 on third downs. They had only one very long scoring drive. There were a couple of short field plays. What did you like from that game that you would actually like to see repeatable?
Yeah, outside of the long run, right, where they broke the 41-yarder, I thought for the most part our run defense was pretty solid. And you'd like to continue to have the success we've had on third down. Now, the one thing I don't think he did as much because he was kind of nursing a hand was run the ball. And that obviously helps their third down stats. So we got to be cognizant of that in terms of how we're calling the game. So if we can have that same success, both eliminate the explosive run and have the success we've had in the other part of the run game, and have the same success on third down, I think that would bode well for us.
What did you learn about defending James Cook from that game?
Oh, man, try not to give him open space so we can run for 41 yards. No, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him and just the way that he runs. I think they actually have a tandem of really good backs back there. And when you pair that with the physicality that their offensive line tries to play with, that's why they have the success they have. So I like that kid, man, and hope he doesn't have a lot of success on Sunday.
So I'm wondering, have you felt, pressure's not the right word, but with the offense obviously not playing up to standards of the last 2 years, albeit well last week, have you felt any pressure as offensive coordinator to present new things to Mike that might work? Do you feel that internally as an OC?
No, actually, I feel the opposite of where you want to make sure you're going back to core principles, core things you're attacking. And I learned early on in my career, when you're you're facing some adversity, it's like you want to make sure you bring the group back to find consistency and something to improve upon to get better. So I think always when we're going through stuff is, right, what's our core? How do we improve at it? How do we give guys the ability to get consistency? So I think always my task is to centralize things and see here's where I see it and help paint the picture as we try and attack the defense each week.
Frank, I've been told by a few players that one of the things that defenses are doing with Tyreek and Jalen is jamming them, putting hands on them at the line of scrimmage. What is your counter to that? Because I've been told it throws off the timing of the passing game. They just have to beat that? What's your counter to that?
I think there's times where you have to be efficient in your release, but it also comes down to us trying to help with formations, creating stacks, bunches, access points for them to get into the defense. So there's certain things like, when I was a young coach, I learned this line formations, can control defenses, so you get certain reactions. So we try to use that to create access for them. But at the end of the day, it's about ability to get off the line of scrimmage and get into the defense. But we will use different formations and allow us to be able to try and do that.
Frank, what do you think of what Jalen Wright has done with his opportunities and maybe his case for more opportunities?
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job. It goes into, the process to get to your performance. And we knew, like all along what we've talked about for him, is just getting used to the complexity of an NFL offense versus the offense that came from college. But, man, he's worked his tail off, and it's awesome for us, good problem to have. So just making sure that, the backs, we're making sure that we have groupings where each one of them can get involved earlier is something that we're being conscientious about.
Has Craig Kraft, with his work in preseason, his work the last couple of years, established himself in your eyes and Wes and Mike's eyes as someone who, when he's active, needs to get a package of snaps on offense, and what will he give you when he's back?
Yeah, I think when you have a guy who's very reliable, dependable, you know his play, you know where he's going to be. You know, being in the system obviously prior to his arrival here helps. You know, just a guy that's going to go about his business the right way and always just, you know, knowing how can I help, you know, with all things. I mean, that's just where with him, he's been very reliable and dependable for us. He's made plays when we've needed it in the past, and, you know, we'll be excited to add him to the mix, you know, whenever we're able to bring him back.
3 interceptions from 2 of the last time out. When you guys turned on the tape, what did you see from that?
Saw for us, you know, just, you know, execution things that we know we can improve on. You know, game 2, it was one of those where we're hoping to, you know, each year is a little different where, you know, you find a way in game 1 to get success and then game 2 build upon it. And that one just, there's some timing things that didn't work out in our favor, but now that's when you come back and you reflect upon it, we know like, okay, this is why this happened and how we can be connected. So whether it's whoever we're in the game is just knowing that what's the intent of the play, and that way we can stay connected with the quarterback to make things happen.
How important is it for this offense to tap back into some of those explosive plays that we saw so regularly last year? The 20-plus air yards, the 60, 70-yard touchdown catch and runs. How important is that for the success of this offense?
I don't know necessarily if it's vital. I think also we've learned in the last couple of weeks, you know, especially last week, how to have longer drives and score. So you'd say the year before it was if the drive is over 8, you know, you guys are used to short, explosive drives to score. So, I mean, later in the year, like, you know, when your goal is to make the tournament, you know, the balance of all teams, you have to learn to make sure you have the ability to be patient and have long drives, ball control drives, especially when each opponent's a little different as how you want to attack them. So ultimately, our goal is to score points, and however we score points is kind of the way we're doing it. So last year we got the explosives. This year there's some more longer drives. I think ultimately our goal is to find the balance, be able to score quick, and also you have ball control drives where you'll be able to effectively score to help the defense win.
Frank, regarding Jalen Wright, getting back to that, is there just a few plays that you could give him and put him in the game, even though maybe you're tipping it off? Is it that simple or no?
I think it's kind of a mixture of the two, like all things. It's never as simple as and, you know, as hard as you think. So I think for us, it's just making sure that, you know, when we have a group of guys that are very talented in the backfield is, you know, making sure that certain packages, okay, hey, what's distributed with him, what's distributed with him. All right, if we're in 21, you know, being a little bit more specific, maybe we want to have this back versus that back. So I think that there's a blend of, you know, how do you get guys involved early? Well, let's make sure that we're good on the preparation end so that way we can have a grouping where they get involved earlier.
Totally random question. In the
Yes.
Big 12, they're doing
My favorite kind of questions.
Right. They're doing an investigation. This is the first year that they're allowed to have the communication between the coach and the quarterback in the helmet.
Yep.
And they're doing an investigation because one of the teams is convinced that due to the lack of encryption, some of the other teams have been listening in on their plays. Have you ever felt that the other team just must know your plays?
I mean,
During a game.
the only place where I ever heard that intercommunication, was in New England, you know, in 2013. We're playing them on Sunday night or whatever it was, and all of a sudden we're on the headsets, you can hear a radio station. You're like, how is that getting in here? Seriously, it was like we're in New Orleans, you're hearing, like, what is that? So, like, that is the only place in my 15 years I ever was like, what's going on here? Surprise, surprise. But it's just kidding. But it's like, no, so, but I mean, it's, as far as years tested with things, it's like ultimately, I think, I always laugh with college football because I think they all want billboards so they can steal it from each other. And now this new piece that it changes the piece of the puzzle where we've never had a problem. And I don't think it's really ever a thing we ever concern ourselves with.
Frank, how would you assess the quality of play, your interior offensive line this year, Jones, Brewer, Liam?
I think it's like what we're seeing the last couple of weeks is kind of where we thought we would be, and that there's factors, you know, with all the change of situations early on that, for us, we had variables that we had to solve, and now getting back to some of our stuff that we felt better that will help consistency. I think that's why you're seeing the guys the last couple of weeks really being able to play the ball that they feel comfortable with inside, because ultimately the inside three have got to be all play together. I mean, it's vital that they have the communication and have the understanding, and I think that's something that we've really gotten honed in on the last couple of weeks.
A mishandled snap in the shotgun, another one under center. Are there any coaching points that maybe need to be emphasized, or does it come down to chemistry between Tua and Abram Brewer?
It's a little bit, yeah. It's just minor nuances of coaching, but ultimately it's like both of them said. It's just making sure that I distribute a catchable ball and I'm there at the right time. So I mean, it was a variable for that, and then under center was just making sure that we're getting the connection. So they've been awesome, yesterday and today, and they're very aware of making sure that doesn't happen again.
Obviously, when you have smaller wide receivers, the opportunities in the red zone or going in the goal-to-goal situation changes how you run routes. What can you do to counter that in terms of making sure you're not throwing corner routes to Tyreek on a consistent basis?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think ultimately it's just the distribution and what formations you're doing to create space, and where does the ball get pushed to. Sometimes pushes it into that spot, but ultimately, like in the red zone, the most efficient teams in the red zone are good running teams. So because the space is minimized, so that's where you gotta maximize run ops, and then you get run ops, then you can get them to compress, and then when you can get them to compress, you can hit different lanes. So it all works hand in hand. But ultimately, I think it's just for us to make sure that we're getting formations and movements, so that way we can attack the different areas of the defense. So when it's in that pocket, it's about the release and the timing, and then when it's in other areas, it's about timing and distribution.
How did the offense look to you last week with Tua back in there?
It felt kind of like I think everyone here would feel it felt kind of more of where we wanted to be. Could we ultimately we think that we got to end our drives with touchdowns, right? And get that area to improve. But overall, felt the movement of the game and the growth is where we wanted to be.
How concerning is the Julian Hill shoulder situation?
Like all guys, when you have guys that are, part of the puzzle, it's when you're working through things, it's challenging. But he'll be diligent in his rehab. So I mean, ultimately, we always try to make sure we have answers for contingencies, so that way we don't limit ourselves as far as the attack for Sunday.
You got good results with Eskridge on kicks and Washington on punts, and obviously you always allow yourself flexibility with that. But generally, is that the way you want to move forward at this point?
Again, it's going to be a continual fluid situation. I was really happy with how both those guys performed. It was good to see carry over from preseason with Malik, and then a good start for Dwayne. So, but as always, the roster and play time and all that stuff is always going to be a fluid situation.
Danny, I know you never have a perfect game. Was that your best game of the season last week?
Again, there's a lot of different ways. It depends how you want to look at it. I look at myself as a teacher, and if one guy gets an F and everybody else gets an A, I still think that's a poor job. So there's a lot, as you look, we didn't have any negative plays. So I guess in the way your visual or however you want to look at that could be one, no negative plays. That's a good thing. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. I was happy with how we played, but not content at all. There's things that we need to do a lot better in just about every single phase. Just because it's not always as good or bad as it seems. If there's one mistake, it's crucial, but everybody else could be doing a great job, but it's a negative. So happy but not content.
I'm sorry. Craig Kraft has not returned to punt in a regular season game since 2020. Do you want him during this 21-day window, however long he's practicing before activated, to field punts just to have that as an option, or do you guys want him just focusing on offense?
No, he does that continually. He's back there catching punts, for the last couple of years. That's always something that's part of his daily, so it's something he'll continue to do.
you don't grade on a curve, like, so
No,
only the
no.
good students, like.
There are no, as you guys well know, there are no curves in the National Football League. Okay, and especially, as whose student gets the poor grade is even it's just as important.
And as far as the wide receivers go, and I know you don't have the final say, how much will special teams matter in River Craycraft, coming up and when he comes up? Because he's a key special teams player.
Those things are, it depends on a lot. There's so many moving parts, and when you talk about one specific player, you're really talking about a group position, and then you're talking about a side of the ball. So there's a lot of things that go into those decisions. It's not always just there's one player, well, why isn't this happening? There's a lot of things tied into, how that group is set up for the week, how the offense or defensive is set up for the week, how so there's a lot of moving parts before those decisions are really ever made.
So obviously you were not here last year, but I think we're seeing probably a different David Long. He was a dominant run stopper last year, played well. There seemed to be more of an unevenness with his game this year. Do you think it's because he's battling injuries? Do you think it's a technique issue?
I think there's, every year's different. We don't know each other that well, but I'm definitely a windshield guy. Meaning I don't look in the rearview mirror and what happened a year ago or in the past or learn from those things, but if you keep saying, oh, well, this happened last year, well, but then I do think Dave's dealt with some things, injury-wise, which unfortunately that happens in football, especially when you're getting into week 9 of the season. So those are definitely some things that I think that factor in. But Dave's a damn pro, man. That's probably the thing that I love most about him is that he, there's a reason he wears a C on his jersey is because of the way he leads and the captain that he is, and he does it no matter what his role is week to week. No matter how his body feels week to week, he's been a damn stud for us and will continue to be.
And I know one thing that Coach Weaver said last week is that he thought maybe he'd weave in a little bit of Anthony Walker with David Snaps. Anthony played 20, as you know, against Indy. Last week, David played all of them.
Sure.
What led to that? How difficult is that decision, whether to weave in a little of Anthony, or do you think you're at your best with David Long on the field every snap?
Yeah, it's never just spur of the moment. I mean, that was the plan going into the game, going into the Indy game. For that reason, because we felt both of those guys, both Anthony and David, have dealt with some injuries, and just to kind of lighten the load on both of them, that was the theory. But every single week, the plan changes. You can get wrinkles and wrenches during the week. Happened last week. We lost Zach in practice on Friday. So that always tweaks the plan. But every week is unique and individual to its own game plan. So, but those things are talked about and planned and strategically, as far as roles within the game, whether we're going to roll guys or a guy's exclusively going to play. Those are things that are talked about and discussed.
What are the teaching points for your linebackers when they have to defend both to play Josh Allen with his arm and also with his legs?
Yeah, he's a beast. He truly is. I've obviously played against him a few times, the last handful of years. But, when you got a guy like that in your division that you got to deal with twice a year, hell of a player, hell of a talent. And I think, like you said, what makes him so unique and special is that he can drop back and rip it. But then also I'm not talking about just quarterback design runs. I'm talking about when things break down. You got a 6'5", 240-pound running back there. Yeah, will take off and run the ball. So, heck of a challenge, heck of a player. There's no doubt about it.
Joe, Trey McBride, the tight end last week, had
Yes.
some success. I don't know, if that was linebacker or safety, probably a combination. But
Yeah.
are there things that carry over from last week to Dalton Kincaid this week?
Oh, sure. I think both those guys are two very good young tight ends in this league. Obviously the kid in Buffalo was, a high draft pick and kind of has had a lot more success to this point. But the McBride kid, he's on the come right now. He's a heck of a player. He really is. And he made some plays last week that we were in position to make and we didn't make. So we tip our hat to him. But two very good young tight ends that are up and coming in this league. You hear about the noteworthy tight ends in the league all the time. I think those are two very good tight ends in this league that are coming up.
How can you guys do a better job of containing tight ends in terms of what the damage they can do against linebackers?
Yeah, I think especially this week, with both their tight ends, they do a great job of moving them around, and it's not going to be the way they use those guys in both 11 personnel and 12 personnel, formationally where they align in the formation. It's not going to be exclusively just a linebacker matchup. It's going to be everyone in our secondary. It's going to be obviously both our inside backers. And they're two really good players that, we have a ton of respect for and a focus on this week, because those guys can both make plays. And we gave up some plays last week to the tight end position. So, again, definitely got our work cut out with both those guys.
Joe, of the 5 inside linebackers on your 53, who do you think is your best person in coverage of the 5?
Well, I think I've said this to you guys before. I think we're in a really cool situation, especially with the 4 older guys. With Jordan and Duke and David and Anthony. Not to exclude Channing, but Channing's a young kid that's still finding his way. But those other 4 guys have played so much football, and all 4 of them obviously have completely different skill sets, different sizes, different speeds. But I think, especially in coverage, underneath coverage, I think the craftiness that you have as an inside linebacker, I think really plays a part in this. And all those guys have played so much football. They've all been, whether exclusive starters or part-time starters, they've played a lot of football. And I think they bring individual unique skill sets to the table. So, I'm not going to sit up here and rank each one of them, but I do think in what we do systematically, we've defended the pass fairly well. And I think what we ask those guys to do, each one of them, bring a skill set. Some guys, subtly different skill sets than the other, but a lot of knowledge and a lot of they've played a lot of ball. They really have, all 4 of them.
Joe, Jordan Brooks is the only defensive player to play every snap. What does that say about his skill set? Is there a concern about that?
No, I don't know. Yeah, no.
Just to clarify.
No, I wouldn't be. It's not uncommon. I mean, most starting NFL linebackers, most of them do play every snap. Not exclusively. We're in a situation where, especially in some game plans, we've rotated guys. But I think Jordan's done that. Other than the year that he had the injury in Seattle, he's been a full-time starter that plays every snap, and it's just a testament to him, the way he prepares, the way he takes care of his body year-round. To be able to take the grueling grind of an NFL season, to play 60, 65 snaps week in and week out. So, but he's doing a lot of really good things, and I think he's getting even more. This is our first year in the system, and him definitely the first year in the system coming in from Seattle. I think he's just going to continue to improve and get better every week.
As someone with previous coordinator experience, I'm curious what you've seen in Anthony Weaver, the way he leads a defense.
Weave's a stud now. I think just the command that he has. He's got. He played in that system. He coached in that system. So he's got complete control and understanding and command of the system of defense that that we've implemented here in the first year. And I think that says something when you're able to stand in front of the room, and especially the players, they have the utmost confidence and full confidence in you as the play caller. I think that's a unbelievable unique quality that Weave has, and he's special. A guy that I look at Anthony Weaver. He should be and will be a head coach in this league, just because of the way he commands our defense. He'll do the same thing at some point in his career as running an entire team.
You guys did a great job defending the run last week. What are some of the things that worked well last week that you believe you can bring over to Buffalo?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in that aspect of our defense is that I think we've defended the run fairly well week in and week out. What's happened is we've given up. You give up an explosion play in a game, that's going to kill you. So the consistency part of it, I think last week from wire to wire, we were pretty dang consistent the entire game. Where you go back to a few games before, you defend 35 runs and you play 33 of them really well, but you give up 2 explosion plays. That's going to kill you from a statistic standpoint. But that's you could say the same thing in any aspect of your football. You're always looking to be totally 100% consistent, throughout a game. And I think last week was really the first time all year that we were like, hey, from the first run to the last run, we were pretty dang consistent. And that's obviously what we're striving for, every week, just the consistency in our play.
Eric, what is your 3-week assessment of the running game? The last 3 weeks, how have you guys done?
Well, I mean, obviously we've had some productive games the last 3 games. We've run it well, and I think that's really a credit to everybody. We put an emphasis on doing some of the little things, and I think that is translated from the O-line to the tight ends to the backs. The wide receivers have done a fantastic job of being involved in that and helping with that productivity. But at the end of the day, we've got to keep pushing that agenda and going forward with that, because we're not getting the ultimate result that we want. So we're not just going to be satisfied with production in the run game, and then we're not coming out with our end goal, which is obviously win the game. And so our emphasis and our agenda is going to continue to push forward until we get the result that we want.
What have you seen Jalen like in the opportunities he does get, and is he making the case for more opportunities?
Well, Jalen's been awesome. For a rookie to pick all this up as he has, he's worked extremely hard at it. He's obviously talented. When he's gotten in there, he's made the most of his opportunities. The reality is it's a crowded room. It's a good room. And so finding ways to get carries for all those guys is a challenge. You want them to get them all to get going, because they all have the ability to affect the game in a positive way. And Jalen is a part of that. We want to get him more touches. There's just looking to find windows to do that for each of them.
Isn't that easier, considering you can just give him carries at the beginning of the game, or part of the game plan, or the first script of 20?
Well, there's a lot of things that go into that. When you're running the ball for a runner, it's getting a feel for what's happening in the game. And so, you start mixing guys in and dropping this guy, and you take one guy in to take one guy out to give him that opportunity. Now, you're changing the whole dynamic of things. So what we're constantly trying to do, what I'm trying to constantly do, is get a feel for where we are, who's in the flow of what's happening, who's getting productivity, and who's riding with these things. And that changes all the time within the course of a game. So we're trying to get the people in there that give us – there's not a guy in my room I would not put in the game. I trust those guys in the room. I think we've got a talented room. So whether that's Devon, whether that's Raheem, whether that's Jalen, whether that's Jeff Wilson, we trust those guys to go in and be productive. When and how we do it, that's also the challenge for the defense to figure out too. You know what I mean? So what they're seeing and what we're trying to do based on different people. So there's a lot of different things. It's the easy thing is to say, well, just drop this guy in and play him right now. Well, okay. What's the result of it? What are we getting from it, and what is the outcome that we're trying to get from it?
He does have the 5.3 yards per carry average. Is that a byproduct of, I'm not trying to take it away from him, is that a byproduct of the opportunities that he's entered the game in the fourth quarter, maybe some defense was a little bit worn out, or is it?
No, I think it's just the plays that he's had. He's done a nice job with. They've been blocked well, this and that. I mean, we had the same conversation last year, sitting here with 28, right? I mean, right? I mean, so it's the same exact conversation. It's just a different year forward. So it's a good conversation to have. We've got a productive young guy who we want to get more touches to, and he's maximizing his opportunities. And so, therefore, we're going to try to get him some more opportunities.
Studes, what are you looking for the run game to do this week at Buffalo? Is there situational things, 3rd and 1, short yardage, catching the ball, red zone, or are there situational things you're looking for?
I'm always looking, and we talk about it in our room, I'm looking for our room to make a difference in the outcome of the game and the effect that it has on the offense. That's what I want us to do. If that's pass protection and we got to stand up and pass protect against guys, then we need to do that. If that's running routes out of the backfield or from extended sets, whatever, and we need to do that, then that's what it is. And if it's running the ball, let's run the ball effectively. Let's be physical. Let's be aggressive and decisive in how we're trying to put the ball in the right places. And then let's think about making big plays that affect this offense. It's not, yes, there's the compartments that we want, red zone, short yardage, early down, all those things that go into that. But we have an opportunity in every one of those compartments to make a difference for this offense and on the game. And that's what this group of men that I have in that room, that's what we talk about, that's what they want to do, and that's the agenda really that we're pushing forward.
Can you break down to me how, like, the running back personnel decisions are handled? Like, is it obviously, like, each guy has packages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And are you being like, okay, I want this guy in there at this time, or how are those decisions
It
handled?
varies. Sometimes it is that. Sometimes it is a personnel package that puts a certain player in or 2 players in at the same time. Sometimes it's situational, depending on what it is. Maybe it's red zone, maybe it's 3rd down. Certain guys play more in those situations. And then sometimes it's, if a guy's going, let him go. Let him go, But the reality is it's a tough physical game. And for guys to play 8, 10, 12 play drives, which we've had, that's tough. That's tough for those guys, for them, because at the end of the day, right, a 12 play drive puts you down there hopefully in the red zone, which is when you want to be your freshest to be able to score. Well, after 10 or 12 plays of running routes and doing this and that, you may not. That's why we have the rotate. That's why we have the capability to put more guys in. And that's one of the benefits that we have, and that's one of the good things that we do have.
I don't want to bring up old stuff, but
Here we go. That button that button negates everything that comes before it. So
when you have backs that put the ball on the ground,
correct.
What is the emphasis that you say? Obviously, what is the emphasis that you say to them, and then do you have the philosophy of, okay, you put the ball on the ground, well, you got to come sit next to me for a little bit?
It depends. To answer the first part of the question, we drill that starting in OTAs and through camp, and even now, when we put on pads, we have drills that we do that are about ball security. We're constantly talking about it. We're evaluating it. We watch tape. I'm pointing out people on other parts, other offenses that don't take care of the ball. We want to. This is what we want to do. So ball security is a huge conversation for us all the time. It's got to be at the forefront of our thought process because the team is entrusting us with the ball. And that is a huge responsibility. And if we can't hold on to it, then obviously we can't contribute. But to the second point of it, I think that depends on where it is. There's different times in games. I believe in giving the guy the ball again because I think you got to get that taste out of your mouth as soon as possible. Doesn't always work that way where you can do it, but I think about it that way because I think all of us you kind of rely on what your last experience is. And the longer you stand there and think about that last experience, the longer it lasts and keeps you from moving forward in what you want to do. So I think there's lots of ways of dealing with it. I've always felt like that that's kind of a moment by moment decision. Not saying I've always done that. There have been times when I've held guys out, but overall my philosophy is try to get them back into the game, reach them, get them back as soon as you can, and let them know that, hey, we got more plays to go in this game, and we need you. That's not the end-all, be-all at this moment.
I do have another question for you, for bringing up old stuff again.
No but this time.
Just 2021, when this team rallied from 1-7, you were here,
Yep.
and then won 8 of 9. Obviously, you didn't beat Tennessee and get into the playoffs. But what led that rally? What led that? Because so many teams would have mentally checked out at 1-7. What stopped you guys from doing that in that process at that point in 2000?
What stopped us from?
I guess
What helped us
Yeah.
to do that? Is that the question? Okay, I just want to make sure I understood what you were asking me. I think every team is unique, and every group of people that comes together has a different way. That group of people, we kind of got on a roll, and we got the wheel spinning, and the wheel started, and it was spinning the right way. I believe that time and this time is very similar in that our focus is we're not looking around for answers. We're looking within, and that we got to do things better within our group. And that's, I think, what the answer to the question is. It's not this miraculous thing that we can sit around and wait and hope that something's going to happen. We got to make it happen. But you make it happen by going back to the fundamentals, the techniques, everybody being on the same page, everybody being coordinated, and pushing this thing forward, everybody contributing. And I think that's what did it in 21 that did that. And it's the same things we're talking about right now. We haven't seen the fruits of that labor, but that labor has been better. Run game has been better, and we've got to now push that forward.
When you look at the the run game, you guys get the ball last week, 8:51 I think left, 27-25 lead. Do you have the back who can run out the clock, who can and should you have been able to run out? I know 9 minutes.
8 minutes. 8 minutes is a long time. I mean, that's a long drive.
Should you have been able to get in field goal range, or should the run game, or should the offense have been able to do it, or should the run game?
Well, I don't know if there's a should. That's our expectation. I mean, that's why we're going out there to do that. We know that we've got to put ourselves in position to close that game out. However that happens. If it's an 8-minute drive, that's fantastic. We'd love to have that happen. We're probably not at that point in time where we're just strictly running the ball, trying to say we got to run the ball, 15 times, because you're probably going to be in that range, 15 runs straight to get that out of the game at 8 minutes left. So we got to be in our offense. We got to be playing, and so that's what we're doing. And we're always trying to be aggressive in doing things. And as soon as you start getting one-dimensional and things like that, that gives your opponent a chance. And so we want to make them have to defend everything and worry about us and everything and the capability that we have with every group in our offense.